Chapter 18. I am the Good Shepherd. John 10:14. In our last chapter, we learned that Jesus claimed to be the door of the sheepfold. In this chapter, we will discover that Jesus also claimed to be the Good Shepherd. This is actually a continuation of the same theme. Why did Jesus call himself the Good Shepherd? Did he mean to imply that there were bad shepherds around? He may have been referring to the words of the prophet Jeremiah. Woe to the shepherds who were destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares the Lord. Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says to the shepherds who tend my people. Because you have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not bestowed care on them, I will bestow punishment on you for the evil you have done, declares the Lord. I myself will gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them, and will bring them back to their pasture, where they will be fruitful and increase in number. I will place shepherds over them who will tend them, and they will no longer be afraid or terrified, nor will any be missing, declares the Lord. Jeremiah 23, 1-6. God was angry at those who were bad shepherds. He promised that he would punish those shepherds. He also promised that he would send shepherds who would be good shepherds. Jesus claimed to be the ultimate good shepherd. Jesus made his claim, verses 11-13. I am the good shepherd. He emphasized a contrast. He contrasted the good shepherd with the hired man. Why does this make a difference? Jesus provided 3 reasons. The first reason that Jesus gave to distinguish the hired hand from the shepherd is that the hired hand does not have the same relationship with his sheep. He is not the shepherd. A shepherd spends time with his sheep. He gets to know his sheep by name. This is not true of the hired hand. Another reason to distinguish the hired hand from the shepherd is that the hired hand does not have a sense of ownership for the sheep. The sheep do not belong to him. If the sheep are lost or harmed, it does not affect the hired man's pocketbook as directly as it would the shepherd. The third reason to distinguish the hired hand from the shepherd is that the hired hand does not have the same compassion for the sheep. The hired hand cares nothing for the sheep. The shepherd develops an affection for his sheep. The sheep return some of that affection. The shepherd cares for their well-being. This does not happen with the hired hand. It is one thing to know these differences, but it is another to see how these differences play out in a real-life situation. Jesus gives us a prime example. When a wolf comes to attack the flock, there is a difference between how the shepherd will respond and how the hired man will respond. The shepherd will stay with the sheep and risk his life to protect them from any predator. The hired man, on the other hand, would abandon the sheep and run away from the situation. Jesus repeated his claim in verses 14-18. I am the good shepherd. Jesus emphasized his close relationship with his sheep. He said, I know my sheep and my sheep know me. The word Jesus used, to know, implies an intimate relationship. Jesus also emphasized his close relationship with God the Father. Jesus compared his relationship to his sheep with his relationship with his Father. He used the term just as, I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as my Father knows me and I know the Father. Jesus is claiming to be the Son of God. He is claiming that there is an intimate relationship between God and him. He knows God in a way that most people do not know God. Jesus also emphasized his willingness to die for his sheep. He said, I lay down my life for the sheep. This was a deliberate act of love. This is why he came to this earth. He was born to save his people from their sins. This meant that he would have to die the death of a criminal, but he was willing to do this in order to rescue his lost sheep. At this point, Jesus introduced a new concept. He claimed to have other sheep. They are not of this pen. This was his way of saying that these sheep were not from the people of Israel. God sent Jesus to earth to die for the whole world and not just the Jewish people. Jesus said, I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice. Jesus was predicting that many Gentile people would come to know him as their Savior. There shall be one flock with one shepherd. This was not the beginning of a separate flock. Jesus was going to bring both groups together as one. Jews and Gentiles were made one through the cross of Christ. Finally, Jesus explained God the Father's love for him. God's plan was that Jesus would die for the sins of the world. All along, they were planning that his death would be followed by his resurrection. Jesus was willing to do what the Father wanted him to do. His willingness to die was voluntary. When talking about it, he said, "No one takes it, my life, from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." Verse 18. Not only did Jesus have the willingness to lay down his life, he also had the authority to lay it down. He was the Son of God. A regular human being does not have the authority to lay down their life. God made us, and only God has the authority to choose between life and death. That is why abortion, murder, and suicide are always wrong. We are never supposed to play God. But Jesus was different. He had the authority to give his life because it belonged to himself. By his willingness, Jesus demonstrated his obedience to his Father. A good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Jesus was willing and able to lay down his life for you and me. That is why he is the Good Shepherd. In his book, The I Am God, Woodrow Cole reminds us of an important connection. Shepherds are important in the Bible. The scriptures often make use of the shepherd-sheep analogy. Think of Psalm 23, the favorite psalm of many Christians and Jews. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Psalm 23. In the first verse of Psalm 23, David records his decision to make the Lord his shepherd. Have you? Then David used the rest of the psalm to explain the results of his choice. He was a satisfied sheep because he had a good shepherd. What did Jesus claim? Jesus claimed, "I am the good shepherd." He lays down his life for us.